So beyond the core card game mechanics itself, we also developed this whole fantasy lore surrounding the Galatune multiverse. And I was really happily surprised that even though the lore doesn't really directly impact gameplay, a lot of players have gotten really excited about all the flavor text on our cards and backstories, and so I wanted to celebrate that, and so we held a very special fanfic contest. So the idea was that anybody could submit a fan fiction for their own character concept, and then me and my secret judging committee would read through them, and the highest scoring fan fiction would actually be used to inspire a real Galatune character. It was so much fun reading through everyone's ideas, but we had one concept that really stood out to me and to my judging committee, and that was for a new dragon character called Lady Umber. So, if you've been poking around the Galatune lore, you might have seen that the way we do dragons is a little bit unique, and it's gotten everybody pretty excited. Basically, in the Galatune multiverse, dragons are these very powerful cosmic beings that exist in another dimension, and they're kind of on this endless quest to devour other dragons and absorb their powers until eventually only one dragon is left as the ultimate dragon. But through a series of crazy events that I won't get into here, the dragons got pulled into our universe where they continue to do this endless quest of hunting. One of the cool powers about dragons is they're actually shapeshifters and can transform into anything that they've eaten before, because by eating something they gain its powers, which include taking on its physical form. Well, it was no surprise that we got quite a few fan fiction concepts revolving around dragons, but what made this one stand out was, well, it kind of asked the question, what would happen if a dragon were to take on a human form and then have amnesia and not realize that it's a dragon anymore? And I mean, we thought that that had a lot of potential in the Galatune universe. Actually, I mean, it's a really fun concept, and fit pretty well within our established lore. So, I want to actually show you guys the character that we developed. But before we get into that, I'm going to take a step back and show you guys a bit of the development process that went into it and the original source material that the fan provided. So let's start by actually reading through the fan submission. All right. Lady Umber, a young, reckless dragon. After a battle with a formidable dragon left you broken, memoryless, and trapped within a human form, you didn't know how to operate. A human noble found you, nursed you back to health, and convinced you that you were only a human. Though you were reckless and impulsive by nature, your father fostered a more humane perspective within you. He taught you how to channel your ravenous hunger through your natural fighting ability and taught you compassion to know when to use it. A hard blow came when he was killed for his involvement with the Azure Eye. After leaving you burned, raised from home with hammer in hand, you will finally give into your hunger and get revenge. So yeah, that was a pretty cool backstory. Definitely a lot to work with there. Now, this particular fan went way above and beyond too. I mean, you could tell she had a working knowledge of our lore and a real love for dragons in our universe. But on top of all that, she also submitted some pretty cool fan art to go along with her story. Now, for this fanfic contest, we actually did not consider art. Art was not one of the judging criteria. So even though we let fans submit art, we kept all the art hidden from the judges. So the judges didn't get to see this until after they already picked a winner. And then when they saw it, it was like, oh, wow, well, glad we made that choice. We have the fan art that the fan submitted along with her character. Pretty cool looking. Definitely a unique aesthetic. Love the prosthetic leg. Love the missing digits on the hand and this kind of wild asymmetric look to her attire and the way she balances out the dragon elements with the humanoid elements. It's definitely pretty cool. So let me show you guys where we went with this and developing our Galatune character. So couple key differences with the Galatune character. I think one of the first changes I made was taking a look at the outfit. Actually, I mean the fan fiction was great, but the fan art leaned more towards like kind of a high fantasy, and to kind of help anchor this character more into our Galatune universe, we gave her a new outfit that was more along the lines of the region where she was born at. Well, not born. Well, the dragon birth is complicated, and we'll definitely talk about that again. She wasn't born, but we need to give her a new outfit that made sense for the region where she was raised, and make it a bit more modern and a little less high fantasy looking. And I also wanted to get rid of her scales. The physical scales on her are really cool, but I thought that if we got rid of some of the dragon elements, we could really kind of go to the point in her story where she doesn't know that she's a dragon yet and make it to where maybe she's just a mutant and that's why she has a tail. So that leads us to another big change. And instead of believing that she's human, we actually have this character believing that she's Notre. So as a Notre, they often have very unstable genetics. Sometimes they look perfectly human, sometimes they look perfectly like an elf, sometimes they just look somewhere in between, or sometimes they have these really weird physical mutations. So it was conceivable to think that if she grew up in an isolated region, and if she was really kind of strange and mutated looking, that if she said she was a Notre, then people wouldn't really question it too much, and she wouldn't question it too much either. So that's kind of a way of letting her have some superhuman abilities like speed and strength and this kind of interesting looking tail and horn, without people really questioning too much. I mean, in the context of this society, it's much more likely to believe that she's a Notre than it is to think that she could actually be a dragon, because just the behavior and her personality is about the furthest thing from dragon-like as you can get. So that was another kind of thing we did when developing her character. Actually looked at kind of young Goku from the Dragon Ball series mixed in with a bit of like a Winry Rockbell from Full Metal Alchemist for inspiration for her humanoid form's personality. So she's kind of a tinkerer, she's kind of headstrong, very ambitious, very competitive, but at the same time, you could tell that she has a heart of gold. Now, where this whole gets complicated later on in her journey, this whole kind of heroic, adventurous personality that she has is all kind of a facade, really, because it was crafted for her through years of psychological and physical trauma, abuse, and manipulation by her father figure. And that gets into some really gray versus gray areas that I think are going to be really fun for us to explore later on. Because on one end, the things that her father figure subjected her to were, I mean, they're just terrible. But on the other hand, we learn that her father figure is actually a freedom fighter, so he's kind of justifying a lot of what he's doing because he has a noble cause. And another layer of that is you have to keep in mind that when he took her in, she's a dragon. Like, she has no remorse. She doesn't think or feel the way that a human does. She's a beast. She's a monster. So when you think about it that way, I mean, is it abusive behavior or is it dragon taming? It's complicated. It's messy, and that's the sort of theme that I like playing with. So she grows up through manipulation as her father figure is very intentionally social engineering, trying to tame a dragon to turn it into a weapon for war. But through that process, and combined with her amnesia, she actually, develops this character, this heart of gold, this adventurous hero. So eventually, now that her father figure's out of the picture and she's out on her own, At one point she's going to realize that she's a dragon, and then it all comes crashing down. Like this beautiful heroic personality that she's been clinging on to is all just something fabricated. And once she pushes through that, then you'll have this conflict where, is she going to give in to her feral state? Like, is she going to revert back to this intelligent but cruel, domineering dragon? Or after spending so much time thinking and feeling the way that a person would, is that going to influence her personality some after she knows the truth? So that'll be really fun to explore. So at this point, I want to actually read through our character bio for the Galatune character here. All right. Dragons are strange beasts of incredible otherworldly power. Power that people would do anything to possess. Power that could promise hope, freedom, vengeance, or destruction. Once, you were a proud and vicious predator, driven like old dragons to conquer and subjugate. However, when a brutal battle left you amnesic and near death, a hunter known as Foray rescued you and raised you as his own daughter. Foray taught you how to curb your natural instincts and raised you to be kind, heroic, and fierce. Through psychological and physical trauma, Foray conditioned you with a hatred of the world government and convinced you that you are not a dragon, but instead his nurtured child. After your father mysteriously disappeared, you found a new family with a group of relic raiders. Now, you and your friends adventure through the Rime region, seeking treasure and facing rival raiders. All right. So, as we dig into her actual character design, the way we usually do this, I'll write up a character bio for our artists that kind of goes into the basic background, and then I'll kind of build up an inspiration board of images that the artist can use to kind of figure out how to design this. But then beyond that, our artists have a lot of creative freedom to kind of interpret the character on their own. And that's why it's really important to me as a game developer to make sure that we're working with artists who kind of understand our vision. And so Yamerpro, our the first artist that we worked with, I mean, it's really kind of crazy how well she hits the mark every time. So I know that if we give her a good background on the character, that she's just got this incredible talent for seeing in her mind's eye how to bring that character to life. So as we're looking through a few of these character references here, you can see that we're definitely going a much more modern direction than the fan art source material. With her updated backstory and personality, I was looking a lot at like mechanic tropes, Western tropes, a little bit of cyberpunk. We wanted to build out a character who was strong but kind of wild and kind-hearted but a little kooky and a little clumsy. We also looked at a bunch of different ways of interpreting her prosthetic and wanted to do something that would make sense as an adaptation of ancient technologies, so like ancient advanced technology from our universe. So basically you can kind of glean together that she's kind of got an affinity for all this ancient relics and gear and uses it to perform maintenance on her own prosthetics, and then also to kind of collect and build on and sell all these rare relics from the past. So in the original fan art, she had this massive hammer that she fought with, and talking with the fan, the concept was basically that inside this, that the hammer would actually store her prosthetics and some of her maintenance gear. So we kind of took that idea and ran with it, and then brought it up to like 11. So in Galatune, the concept is that this hammer actually is actually an ancient relic that contains a pocket dimension. So it's kind of a bag of holding in a sense, where she uses this near infinite storage inside of her hammer to hold all of her maintenance gear, to hold all of her relics and weapons that she finds when she and her fellow relic raiders are going through these ancient tombs. And so she's just got this huge arsenal of melee weapons and ancient gear at her disposal. Now, we didn't want to go like 100% mechanic to help tie it into this region. You see, the Rime region in Galatune is very interesting because it's essentially this desert region full of outlaws and bandits and ancient ruins, and it kind of exists on the fringe of society. It's one of the few places in the world that the government really doesn't have much of a reach over, and that's really kind of a natural phenomenon because you see this region has a very unique magnetic storms, and these magnetic storms make it very difficult for the world government's technology to have much of a presence here. And so beyond being difficult to send their robots in to enforce this region, it's really kind of full of undesirables, and it's really not worth the effort. It's a difficult region. The weather's really harsh. There's very little food or water. It's one of those places where you got to be crazy just to live there. But we actually, the first time we established this region was with another fan character, Notre Virtus. So if you remember, Notre Virtus is kind of this superhero lawmaker gunslinger who swears off guns, and so he's from the Rime region, and it's kind of got this western vibe to it. He's kind of like a cowboy looking character. So we wanted to bring in some of those elements to our character design, so you see just a little bit of that kind of western flair to some of these references. So anyways, I've talked the heck out of this, but let's get to what you're really here for, and that's the reveal of the actual character art itself. All right, so here you go, the official pencil line art for our new fan-inspired character, Lady Umber. You can see that it's definitely more along our Galatune style. You see a lot of strong references to the original fan art, the sort of baggy pants, the loose wild fit, the kind of casual wild posing, the horn, the tail. Again, no scales because that makes it a little too obvious, but we have her more of a mutant look. So her whole tail and her horns will actually be like the same skin tone as the rest of her. You can see that she's loaded up with all sorts of gear. She's got pouches and feathers and wrenches, and you can tell she's a mechanic. She's curious. She's a tinkerer, and you see her kind of leaning in on her pocket dimension hammer with this kind of preposterous pose that kind of shows off she's got superhuman strength and balance and kind of just a little bit of a quirkiness to her. We added a star crystal into the hammer relic, so that kind of helps tie in how the pocket universe is possible by drawing power from the star crystal. We also added some embellishments to the hammer itself to make it look a little bit more like a treasure chest in some sense. So it kind of gives the impression that maybe this relic wasn't originally designed as a weapon, as a hammer, but that it was adapted like that later on. But she's got a kind look to her face and her eyes, and it's we're really excited about this, and I hope that you guys are too. It's definitely a character with a lot of potential. So next steps, Yamerpro is going to go ahead and run with this line art and continue it out into full color. We actually do already have her gameplay mechanics in place, and so we'll have a card here ready before you know it. And we'll start by introducing her character as a digital character free on the Galatune app. And I definitely do want to do a printed version of her character card eventually, but getting it digital is a bit easier than figuring out how to get prints. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, once it appears on the app, it'll be a fully playable character, and everyone will have instant access to that. So thanks for sticking around and kind of listening to me drone on about our character development. I hope that was kind of cool for you to see some of the thought that went into behind the scenes of this character. And as always, huge thanks to Yamerpro. She's just an incredible artist, and so excited to be working with her again for our new fan characters. And thank you to the fan who actually submitted the story to help create this character. That was so much fun, and definitely think we're going to try doing another fan fiction contest eventually. But if you think this is pretty cool and you want to get involved in helping to create a Galatune character, don't forget that our new G3 program also includes ways for you to jump in and sponsor a character. So anyone who wants to sign up for G3, that's kind of our private group for fundraising Galatune and giving your input onto the next great thing that we're working on. And we have 10 character slots currently available on that. So the first 10 people to jump in and sponsor us at that level will get to have a similar opportunity of working with us to inspire official Galatune characters. All right. Thanks again.